Well, hello, friends. It's Lindbergh of the Health and Fitness Motivation Podcast. And today we are celebrating the 400th episode. Yes, 400th episode of the podcast. Oh my gosh. Woohoo. I'm going to give myself a big round of applause here. Because, oh my gosh, 400 is a lot. 400 is like amazing. And we have over 63,000 downloads of this podcast. We've got people from a lot of different countries all around the world. My most popular countries, of course, the United States, because this is where I'm based out of in the Pacific Northwest, and Canada, because we've got clients up in Canada. The UK, because we have clients in the UK, and some in Central America, the Philippines, Australia, New Zealand. Those are our biggest listeners. In South Africa. Yeah. What's up with you, South Africa? Let me know. I want to hear you guys. I've never been there. You guys are a long way away. I'd love to hear, who you are. Okay. I want to tell you a little bit about what it's like to produce 400 episodes on the topic of health and fitness and really health and fitness motivation, right? So let me back up just a little bit here and ask you a question. Have you ever in your life had a time where you had something you always wanted to do? Or do you have something in your life right now where you're like, I really, really want to do this one project at home? Or I really want to have a certain conversation, or I really want to, my really, really want to was to do a podcast. And I started this podcast 3 years ago before everybody was doing a podcast, barely before everybody was doing a podcast. And back then, and I think the stats are still pretty much the same, when you start a podcast, about 80% of podcasts that go live go, basically they fade out. They call it pod fade after about 6 episodes because people say, I want to make a podcast. It's great. It's going to be awesome. And then they go in and they start making podcasts. And then next thing you know, they still want to make podcasts, but it's not happening. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Kind of sounds like exercise and eating healthy, doesn't it? The hardest part is the motivation. The hardest part is to keep going and find your why and find what you really want to do. Now, let's back up again here and say, okay, so you want to do something. You want to do something that's hard, maybe a health goal or a fitness goal. Like I wanted to do my podcast. I actually didn't know how to produce podcasts. I had some audio recording background. I owned microphones. I'm very tech savvy for a woman in almost 50. And so I had that going for me. I could learn things, but I knew nothing about like how to even do a podcast. And my worst part of it all, believe it or not, was being able to get in front of a microphone and not become completely tongue-tied and completely forget what I was going to say and have it go out of my mind. And before I started the podcast, I knew I'm not a fan of this phrase. You guys know I hate the phrase, just do it. But it's not that I hate the phrase, just do it. It's that I want to use it very sparingly because just do it means we're doing something we don't like to do and we're forcing ourselves to do it, right? And I don't want to live a life forcing myself to do it. I want to do whatever I can to make life as easy as possible. But sometimes to get on the other side too easy, we got to just do it. So anyhow, 3.5 years ago, I was at an event with my husband, Eric Lindbergh. It was the 90th anniversary of Charles Lindbergh's flight across from New York to Paris. And there was a film crew there, and they were interviewing and filming a bunch of people in interviews. And I was petrified, mortified of being in front of the camera. And I knew I had to get over it. I knew I had to be able to talk in front of a microphone. And I knew the producer, and we were kind of in between shots. It was a multi-day thing, and there was some downtime. It was one of those things where we're actually, I'll tell you a little bit more about it. We were actually on site, and we were using our hotel suite as the recording studio. So they actually took this large bathroom of ours, put a green screen on the wall of the bathroom, set up a chair, set up all the lighting, and that's where they did the interviews for. So anyhow, so we're just hanging out in this hotel room, the team and I. And I told John Bafar is the producer, and I told him, I was like, John, I have to figure out how to talk in front of a camera and a microphone. I'm like, my husband's awesome at it. He's no fair. He's had tons of practice. And I've heard he wasn't very good to start with. I'm like, I know practice is part of it. Do you have any tips? And he looks at me and he smiles and he says, camera's free. You want to give it a shot? And I was like, oh my gosh. And everything inside of me was screaming, no, you're not ready. You're going to fail. Your heart is going up through your neck. Your blood pressure is going up. You're like, this is going to be terrible. And I sucked it up. I looked at him and I smiled and I said, yeah, let's give it a try. So I plopped down in that interview seat. I started sweating. I couldn't even think of like, what's my name? I mean, of course I knew what my name was, but just anything else. And he was so kind and he coached me. And afterwards, I knew I sucked and it was awful. And it really stressed me out. But at the same time, it was really invigorating and exciting. And then he went and actually cut the best pieces and sent me a little reel so I could have it. He sent it to me to show me how good of a job I did. I knew it was really just for me to critique myself and see how badly I sucked at it. And I kind of did. So the moral of this story is everybody has a beginning and everybody needs to start somewhere. And so when you're thinking of like health and fitness and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can show up to a class. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm afraid I won't be able to do it. I don't know if I'll even like it. It'll probably suck. It'll probably just be a downer. It'll be a waste of my money. Sometimes those first steps, you just got to do it because you know it's good for you. You know it's the right thing. And then you get on the other side of it and you realize, all right, it's not so bad. And so for this podcast that I've been having for 400 episodes, those of you who have listened to all 400 episodes, please email me and let me know. Lynn, L-Y-N, at couchactive.com. Please send me an email. Let me know you've listened to all 400 because I know I've got a handful of you. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of episodes. But at the beginning, it was called the Couch to Active podcast. Then later, as time came along, I was like, you know what? This is really a health and motivation podcast. And it's a health and motivation podcast for people who really want to be motivated to reach their goals, but don't want to be told, just do it. Don't want to be told, you need to have more grit. You need to have more self-discipline. You know, it's all about priorities. Like, no. We have way more going on in our lives. We have chronic illnesses. We have pain. We have priorities. We don't necessarily want fitness to be the center stage of our life. And believe it or not, guys, gals, people, humans, I don't necessarily want health and fitness to be the center stage of my life either. It's a means to a vehicle or vehicle to a means. And those of you know, I teach these classes because it's my amazing accountability to help keep me going too. So I started out with a traditional podcast, and then we moved on to 5 minutes, 5 days a week. And then that became too much, and I went dark on y'all sometimes. And and now I decided, you know what? This is just good. I just love doing this podcast, and I'm just going to do it when it makes sense. Probably more often than not. I'm not going to worry about it if it's a 5-minute podcast or an hour-long podcast. We're just going to make it good and make it whatever it needs to be. So really, really, this is my joy now. This is my passion. Used to totally stress me out. Used to be all anal about planning everything out perfectly. And now I can just get in front of a mic and talk kind of unscripted, which is pretty darn awesome. I just enjoy it. And I've heard reports that this podcast has been hacked a couple times by something called The Couch. And it's kind of funny because I've gone through and I've listened. I don't know what people are talking about, but I don't know. Apparently somebody comes on and they say they're The Couch, and yeah. So if you know what that's about, let me know. So I'm super proud that on October 28th, 2018, I said, I'm going to do a podcast, and I went live with it. And I love what I've learned about myself through it. And it would never, ever, ever have happened had I not, at the very, very beginning, just gone for it. And I seriously cannot believe we're 400 episodes in. And I thank you all for listening to all these 400 episodes. I thank you all for helping me make it all searchable. It's on YouTube now, and there's little YouTube channels you can go to and, listen to the podcasts that are about diets and listen to the podcasts that are about exercise specifically or other different topics. I really, really, really appreciate that y'all have been along on the journey. And I want you now to really think long and hard. What's the one thing maybe that you inside of you has been screaming at you saying, do this, do it, just do this one thing. But you've been holding back because you just feel like the barriers are kind of big, or you feel like you might fail, or it might stress you out, or it might, make you, have to be humble and, hang your head if you make a mistake and you feel like a failure. Like, oh my gosh, I've made so many mistakes on this podcast. As you guys know, I've gone completely dark on you for a month at a time and come back and been like, yeah, we're back. But I feel alive. All those pieces, all those parts, the whole enchilada put together with salsa and maybe a little bit of sour cream, all of it together has made me feel alive. And I know it's helped you all to feel not so alone in your health and fitness journey, to feel supported, to have a place that's not the typical rah-rah, always trying to sell you something, but to actually have a real place with a real human being who also really struggles with this too. Yours truly, as I used to call myself, the Bad Couch Guru. So friends, thank you. I cannot believe we're 400 episodes in. Send me your requests for other episodes going forward. And I'm looking forward to rocking and rolling to 500. 500 doesn't seem too far away. 1,000 now. That feels like I'm going to be like a little old lady by the time I get to 1,000. But who knows, right? Okay, friends. Pick your one thing you want to do. Channel your inner Lindbergh and say, I don't care if I'm scared. I don't care if I know how. I'm just going to start doing it and going for it because this is what I want to do. Alrighty, friends, I hope you have enjoyed the first 400 episodes of this. It is sponsored and hosted by Couch2 Active. That's couch2active.com. Head on over to the webpage right now. The homepage has your instructions of the very first steps you want to do. And if you want to work with me one-on-one or in group sessions, we've got that there too. That's couch2active.com.